Howdy. Do you ever find yourself talking to somebody about, like current racial issues that are going on in this country, and they'll say to you something like, "Well, I don't see color. I'm colorblind. I don't pay attention to any of that kind of stuff." Well, I have some thoughts on colorblindness, and I want to talk to you about them right now. Colorblindness amounts basically to a dismissal of the lived experiences of people of color. And it suggests that racism doesn't exist as long as you can ignore it. Just slide it under the rug. Let's not talk about it. If we talk about it, that means it's there. And if we don't talk about it, it's not there, right? Just slide it under the rug. But, in the context of ongoing structural and systematic racism, racial colorblindness is oftentimes used as a device to just disengage from conversations about race and racism entirely. Blind means that you're not able to see. And what this means in terms of racial colorblindness is that you're not seeing the person. You're not seeing, if you're talking to a black person and you say, "I'm colorblind," well, you're not seeing that person. You're choosing not to not only just not see the skin color, but you're also choosing to not see the racial disparities, the inequities, the history of violence, the differences in health outcomes, and current trauma that's perpetuated within a racist society. You just completely ignore all that because I'm colorblind. I don't see that. Now, people of color, on the other hand, will explain to you that race and ethnicity does matter. It's a big part of who every person is. You're born with it. It's who you are, right? And not only that, but it matters in practical ways because it affects the opportunities available to somebody. It affects the perceptions that the society around them has. For instance, following somebody around the store because you think they're going to be a shoplifter because they're a scary looking black person, or you ever seen those Second Amendment audits where, they'll send a white guy and a black guy out separately, legal open carrying a gun, and you see the differences in how they're treated, right? Well, those things are real, and you can't just ignore them. It's something that cannot be removed from a person, and it's something that black people and brown people have to live with every single day that they live. They have to get up and go out in the world and deal with people like you, right? When race problems arise, colorblindness, it has a tendency to individualize everything. A lot of conservatives, they think that the only form of racism that exists is individualized racism. The kind of racism that one person can feel towards another person. Just, I don't like you, you're black, but they will completely ignore the systematic and structural ways in which our culture has been formed to keep black people down, to keep brown people down, to make them marginalized. And you can just ignore the larger picture of the cultural differences, the differences as far as the way people are stereotyped, cultural values. You can't put any of that in context if you don't see somebody fully. The colorblind approach allows racists to deny uncomfortable differences, cultural differences. In a colorblind society, white people who are unlikely to experience disadvantages due to their race can effectively just ignore racism in America, and they can justify the current social order, and they feel more comfortable with their white privilege because they it's sort of like a self-congratulatory, smug sort of, "Well, I don't see that. I'm not a racist," and blah, and it's a form of false piety. really. And when you choose to do that, you are, in a sense, denying the humanity of your neighbor, of your brother. We're all different. We all have different backgrounds, different histories, different experiences, and these things should be embraced and celebrated instead of ignored. I love the people in my life who are so different than me. I have so much that I learn from them. So much wisdom has been imparted because of people that otherwise I would have no idea about. It's because I try to know them. I try to understand their experiences, try to understand where they're coming from, try to put myself in their shoes. If I had to go through the same stuff they did, whatever, it helps me to be a little more empathetic. To see somebody in their fullness, to see somebody for who and what they are in every way, and to celebrate those things. Celebrate those things. We are all God's children. We are all loved. None of us is inherently better than anybody else based on our religion, based on our culture, based on what culture we come from, or country we come from. None of that. None of those things make one person better than the other. And ignoring the differences that we have, it doesn't make them go away. We need to celebrate them. We need to love each other. And you can't really love somebody if you're choosing on purpose not to see them. So open your eyes. Peace.